Why don't we get started then? Hi Noah, how you doing? Hi Sandra. We have our OpenChain AI working group session today. I guess there's only three of us. Um, it's at the same time that the open source compliance meeting is on, so I'd imagine a lot of our usual folks are um, at that in Japan. I just need to do a bit of housekeeping first with the antitrust policy, and then we can get started. Meetings, this antitrust policy is displayed. You can find out the full details of the antitrust policy at the website on this slide here. And if you are a member of the Linux Foundation or your company is, then you can contact Andy Updegrove for further information. So there were just a couple of things that we discussed at the last OpenChain AI working group in earlier this month at the US Europe session. I guess since then there has been a webinar from a number of people in the OpenChain community. I really do recommend that you go and watch it. I've just put the details in the chat, but the link's not worked. I think this is it's a really good webinar that highlights different aspects from different parts of the world and their AI regulations. So if you get time, go and watch that appropriately. We also had a board meeting, an OpenChain board meeting since the last AI working group, and the main part of that board meeting, which covered the AI working group, was the fact that we have this guide. We think that it's fairly stable as version 1. Yes, we can have a look at it to see if there's any other things that we want to try and capture. But most importantly, we felt as though we needed to try and promote and educate people about this guide. When ISO 5230 was created, there's kind of a lot of momentum around that guide, and there were people keen to promote and educate it. Here we can promote it at different conferences, this AI working group guide. But the ask from the board to everyone who joins this meeting and the OpenChain community in general is try and point people to this guide and see if it's useful before we get to any form of adoption. Does anyone else want to raise? Hearing none, what we did in the last meeting is we went through the guide, which we have here, and we just reflected on the fact that this guide was written 12 months ago, and there are certainly updates that we could do. And one thing that somebody noted, which I don't know if is still in here, this guide is under development and will likely see substantial changes and/or expansion before finalization. I guess we'd reach finalization. So the recommendation was to remove that, which we will do in due course after this call. But one thing that we paused on was the definition of artificial intelligence. And I just want to open this up to discussion. We've got artificial intelligence that was defined here as a computer system capable of performing tasks that would previously require human intelligence. I don't know if people want to come off mute and give the group their thoughts on this definition of artificial intelligence. Does this seem reasonable? Is this your interpretation? Have you heard of other definitions? I will pause there to see who wants to come off mute and make a comment.
I wonder if uh, This actually align with the definition in the ISO uh, 42,000, right?
or 2001. It's a good point.
Yeah. 42, yeah, the taxonomy, yeah, and then the terms, yeah, that one.
I think the definition is quite open, right? This will comprise all sort of technologies, including machine learnings and other types of systems that are less developed than artificial intelligence in the sense of predictions and all of that sort. But if this is the direction the technology is going, I think it makes sense to open the umbrella just to comprise logic systems that can perform with a wider autonomy thanks to, for example, MCPs.
And Sandra, do you know if the EU AI Act defines artificial intelligence?
Yes, it is way narrow compared to this definition. It is based on, well, it's a machine based system that will perform different tasks like predictions, etc., with a level of autonomy and that is also capable of learning during that course of predictions. So the main point is about the autonomy, so the amount of actions that it can execute without user explicit confirmation, as well as the self-learning and adaptativeness point.
Thanks, Sandra. I know Artit's put the link to ISO 42001 in the chat. I know this is usually behind a paywall. Just wanted to see if we could maybe read the definitions. Just open this page. Let's see if I can put it on the screen.
I mentioned the ISO definition because within our SPDX AI working group, we also discussed about this definition and as well. The plan is to put the terms and definitions in the SPDX 3.1, and we now consider should we use the ISO one. It's not settled yet, but ISO is one of the definition that we consider because we also want this to be aligned. I mean, considering that like SPDX, we eventually submit to the ISO process as well. So we like to use one of the like, I mean, the possibility is like use one of the ISO definition, but yeah, it's still open to order as well.
I don't actually see artificial intelligence defined here. Am I missing something? Shout if you see it. So what have you used in SPDX? Do you have that documented anywhere?
Yeah, maybe give me like 5 minutes. I'm sorry, I'm trying to boot up my laptop now and connect it my with my mobile phone. But yeah, I think it's not in this 4,000 42,001. It's actually in another one, which is like entirely about vocabulary and taxonomy. I'll put in the chat later.
Let me just see if I can do a quick Google search. There's nothing immediately coming to the top of the search. Okay. So yeah, if you could find that, and I think there was agreement last time that we relook at this definition, and you're probably right, trying to define with another standard or align with another standard is probably the direction to go. And given that OpenChain is jurisdiction agnostic, we would probably defer to an ISO standard of its definition. If you can find that in the meantime, then please let me know. So we kind of went through the other definitions. We wanted to define a system bill of materials, which we can take from yeah, kind of a group. Yeah, we can take that from another definition elsewhere, but we did want to add what a system bill of materials was, possibly taking an SPDX definition as well. I mean, in the last meeting, we just went through the guide and made some alterations. I don't know if that is worthwhile for us to do here today, if you're interested in doing that. Let's do this. Let's do this because we have a bit of time. As I said, we kind of just walked through each of these clauses, and we thought if this is relevant, it needs updating, then we can do that here. So 3.1 policy, a written policy shall exist that governs an AI system bill of materials compliance. The policy shall be internally communicated and informed by business strategy, legal requirements in the relevant jurisdictions, and the level of risk appropriate for the use case. I don't think there's anything much to highlight here. In competence, the organization shall identify roles and corresponding responsibilities of those roles that affect the performance and effectiveness of the program, because a program is defined as working on sort of a model or any AI system. And this next bullet point, we had a bit of a discussion that in the previous meeting determined the necessary competence of the program participants fulfilling each role. Program participants must have the requisite skills, knowledge, experience, engagement with the functions below if relevant to the use case. So one thing we noted was legal was not on here. Yes, things like compliant or governance and privacy can be part of legal's role, but we also felt that maybe legal should be added here. What are people's thoughts on that? Do we think lawyers are helpful in determining, providing input into these programs?
Matthew, I feel it's good to add legal there as well. Mostly because, like, we might be being a lawyer, I would like legal to be included as a function which manages the compliance program. Maybe it's good to have the legal expertise to analyze any potential regulatory compliance risk.
I mean, I agree, and that was definitely the note that was mentioned in the last meeting. But you also mentioned compliance there. That's also not on here. Do you think compliance is also a key part?
Yes, sometimes it's being shared within the legal arena, but many companies they have operate as different compliance departments. So it's good to add legal and compliance separately, so that sometimes compliance don't fall under legal. So it's good to have both under different umbrella.
Thanks, Abby. Okay. Any other comments there? Hearing none. We also talked on the word development. Just want to ensure that people interpreted the word development as sort of the technical experts developing the AI system. Is that how people interpret that word development, or whether it's worth being more explicit to highlight technical expertise? I don't know if we have any engineers on the line.
I feel development with technical expertise would give more clarity on the subject matter involved to delegate or like to have the ownership over what is required.
Good to have a bit more consensus on that. Anything else? Any other groups of people that we think we should add in here?
Does the development also comprises the design and planning?
I mean, I know you've asked me the question, but I bounce that back to the group here. Do we want to try and incorporate having relevant people that can design something appropriately?
Yeah, I second that as well.
Any other, I guess, engineering roles that we want to explicitly call out? Okay. Going on to 3.3, the organization shall ensure that the program participants are aware of the policy, relevant business objectives, their contribution and effectiveness of the program, and the implications of not following the program's requirements. That seemed to be all reasonable. Program scope, different programs may be governed by different levels of scope. For example, a program could be governed by a single product line or an entire department or an entire organization. The scope designated needs to be declared for each program. And don't think there's any concerns there, but let's speak now. Then with license obligations, again, in the last meeting, we spent a bit of time discussing this one. A process shall exist for reviewing the relevant identified licenses for an AI system's code weights datasets, included but not limited to training, testing, and verification datasets, as well as the license for AI system itself to determine obligations, restrictions, and rights granted by each license, taking into account the intended AI use of the AI system. That is a terribly long sentence, but let's just break it down a little bit because the word relevant was debated at length here. A process shall exist for the relevant identified licenses for an AI system because each I guess system, each organization may interpret the need to identify different licenses, whether we want to just focus on the model or on, everything, as it says here, including data sets for training, testing, and verification. Any thoughts on that that's worth adding here? Okay. And then moving on, note that it's often the case that an AI system is trained on multiple other AI systems that may be identified as an AI system model tree. For example, each of these may have their own license. We spent a bit of time trying to work out why we'd put an AI system model tree in there. It's not defined. We realized that there was probably an analogy to a software tree where we've got branches of different pieces of software that are forked and worked on. So we use that as an analogy. But again, want to open that up to discussion here. Do we note and accept this part of the clause that says that it's often the case that AI system will be trained on multiple other systems and may be identified in a model tree and therefore have their own licenses. So we need to be looking at all the dependencies of the model. Not hearing any concerns there. Okay. What we actually did was we removed this entire sentence because we didn't feel as though it added anything in the previous meeting. So I can spell. Okay, transparency obligations. A process shall exist for reviewing if there are any transparency obligations from regulation, including but not limited to training, testing, verification data sets, taking into account the intended use of the model. If the use case for the training data creates a relevant issue, e.g. disclosure obligations to downstream recipients, in the context of transparency, an appropriate risk mitigation should be taken. Then access, maintain a process to effectively respond to an external AI SBOM compliance inquiries. And then have the program effectively resourced. We felt this was relevant and appropriate. Then 3.9, a process shall exist for creating the AI SBOM, taking into account any format of interest. And then finally, we touched on governance. An organization shall have governance framework for AI policies and practices to ensure that AI systems are developed, deployed, and managed responsibly. Governance emphasizes compliance with emerging AI laws and regulations, such as these acts, and addresses ethical considerations, for example, understanding risks associated with the ongoing AI systems and training data, the content for their intended ability to monitor the life cycle of AI systems and perform ongoing analysis for its intended use. We actually decided to remove the such as, partly because there's a good chance that new legislation will come in and this will clearly be outdated soon. Again, what are people's thoughts on that?
Not sure about the EU one and the China one, but I think I agree at least that we should remove the Hiroshima AI process because that one I don't think it's a regulation in itself.
Okay.
But also your point about like remove everything because it could to be outdated soon or like the document to be looks more neutral. That also makes sense to me as well. So no objection if you like to remove everything.
Good to hear. Well, that brings us to the end of the guide. And sorry, was there anyone else wanted to make any last points on that? Thank you for that point. You make a good point, and I think removing those just in general, as you point out, some of those haven't evolved as we thought, but also maybe come out of date pretty quickly. Thank you for the definitions of artificial intelligence. I shall note those, and we can add them appropriately into the guide. I will just make a comment here so we have them. Okay. So we've kind of reached the end of the guide. There were some minor tweaks there we were going to put into version 1.1. As we said, we want to try and promote this as much as possible. So highly recommend that you promote this within your network. The January session of this AI working group will be a webinar talking about the history of how we got to this guide and trying to promote it that way as well. But that was all I was going to raise today. Does anyone have any other comments?
By the way, Matthew,
Yeah,
Eduardo as well. By the way, according to the ISO definition that 22989,
yeah.
it actually how to say they put AI and AI system separately. So when they're talking about AI, it's more of like a concept, like a field of interest, research area.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, and if you're going to specify like or mention about a computer system, it use AI system. So it's like two different concepts, as I just put in the chat. But I'm not sure whether like we like to go along that line or not. But just to mention that like they consider these two separately, connected but separately.
It's a good point, and I think having a definition of AI and AI system, I think we should align with what we have, and we can make reference to that ISO standard accordingly. Thank you. That's been really fruitful. Really grateful for all the contributions there. Somebody's just put in the chat where they can get a link to today's meeting recording. When we stop the meeting, it will the recording will save. Shane normally sends this out in the next day or two. We also had the meeting from the 2nd of September, which has had the same agenda. So I think that's already been sent out. So you could check your mail from Shane to see if you want to look at that link from the last meeting. Great. Well, as we come to the bottom of the hour here in the UK, if there's no other questions or comments, I can say thank you again. We will meet in the second week in January, and we can go through kind of the history of this guide and where it's all come from. Oh, here, you said the OpenChain session in Japan is well attended. Is that the OpenChain Compliance Summit?
Yeah, the Open Compliance Summit, and
Yeah.
then a lot of people have interest in this AI compliance and stuff, like companies like Fujitsu, Honda, and everything. So I think there's a need in the document that we're reviewing at the moment. Yeah, people waiting to see these guidelines. Yeah.
Great. And
So
if
thanks
you're
everybody.
there, please promote this and recommend people join the mailing list and join. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day and a great rest of the year, and we'll meet in January.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Matthew. Bye.
Bye.